Nigerians are not smiling at the moment due to the high cost of living and the continuous upward inflation being experienced in the country's economic activities. With the policies of President Bola Tinubu of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC still trying to find their bearing, the cry for Nigeria's reset is becoming louder in the public space. However, will the reset of Nigeria happen soon? And if soon, when? Joining us now on the show is Ogaga, Ifowodo, a lawyer, APC chieftain, former commissioner representing Delta State at the NDDC, and a House of Representatives aspirant for the Isoko Federal Constituency seat in 2015. Good morning, Mr. Ifowodo, and welcome to the morning show.
Thank you for having me.
Ogaga, good to have you too.
It's a pleasure.
Quickly, what do you think of the current political dispensation? I mean, given your background as an old-time warrior in the civil arena, from those NGOs of old up till now, what do you think? And what do you think we need to do to reset this country for our benefit, for the benefit of long-suffering, oppressed, dispossessed people of Nigeria?
We must all agree it's tough for everybody right now, except for the tiniest percentage of the population. And when I was thinking about this coming to the studio, my mind went back to when I was a student, even in secondary school, when Shagari's austerity measures came and everybody thought that was the very end of the world for us. We left that, we came to SAP, Babangida bringing SAP to the back. And we were at that time at the university, and of course you remember the great 1989 anti-SAP protest. And now when I think of what is happening, I say, it is even worse. Nobody can sugarcoat it. You can't dice it or slice it in any way. It is really very tough. But these days, I try to look at things from the position of those in power. Say, what would you do? As you said, being an activist in the civil society movement, and then it's criticism. But the doing part is a tough part. That's where the devil is. The thing right now is subsidy. It's been on for a long time. Now, I ask myself, is there subsidy or not? And there are arguments that there isn't any subsidy. And you can advance any number of arguments in support of that. Then those who will come and say, there is subsidy. People actually benefited from it, but not the masses. Or that, yes, the rich may have benefited the most, but still it subsidized petrol in a way that ordinary people, even barbers, even the smallest business has to have a generation. Therefore, that helps. Then transport, cost of food, and so on. But what is to be done? I think that removing subsidy, real or unreal, is a step that this country has to take. Now the question is, would that solve the problem? It won't. At least not in one fell swoop. I believe that some of the many other areas have been suggested to the government to look into, which is the under collection of resources. This time, not even just talking about taxes alone, although if you include petroleum tax, which huge amounts of it are still owed and not collected. I think it was very recently that Femi Falana did a list of areas that the government should be looking at to increase our revenue collection, which might make it unnecessary for subsidy to be removed. But my argument going further from there is that we often don't realize that we're a very large country, 200 million people and probably more, and that even if we were to plug all these loopholes, it will still not be enough to entirely reduce, the oppression that we are experiencing to an appreciable degree. What is necessary is a great dysfunction in the petroleum sector, especially the scandal that so many years after independence, this sixth oil largest producing country in the world, we can't refine petrol in our own country. I have to import it. And this is where the whole problem is. If you import it, you're going to pay at the cost of production, refining abroad, and then transporting it here. How do we not have a refinery, not even one, working today? That is where we have to be looking at. And then, secondly, during the campaigns, literally all of the candidates were very high, poetic on transiting from a consumptive economy to a productive economy. We don't produce enough. From food to the cars, to manufacturers, electronics, we don't produce. So if we import everything, how are we ever going to be able to make life better for the people when our life, therefore, is controlled by the price, by the cost of dollar, naira exchange, and our destiny is not in our hands? So the reset is going to be hard. The question is Tinubu the man for the job? And has what he has told us he will do, is it enough to get the job done? If we agree, how much period of grace, how much benefit of the doubt are we willing to give for a new government to have its policies kick into place?
I'm glad you touch on that in terms of the last questions you asked. Is he the man for the job? Well, he's the man currently holding the job at the moment, so we have to see how it would work. Yeah. Now, in terms of the length of grace, some of his, people from his camp have said, oh, we're going to suffer for a little while, just endure for a little while, and then things will begin to get better. So let's keep hope alive. How long should we keep hope alive? Are people too hard on this government? Because we knew before this administration came into power that it was going to be a tough one for them, bearing in mind what the economic situation was. Should we be giving them a bit more time? Or perhaps if we study the policies and the way that they are being implemented, it's an indication of what is to come. Is that, how should we begin? When should we begin to speak out? And should we begin to talk? And then the other thing I'd like to ask you is that, you had contested to be the so-called federal constituency seat representative in the House. When we look at the sufferings of the people, one of the agitations is that there seems to be a disconnect between the elite and the poor. Only recently, the federal government had announced, or we had gotten the news reports that 70 billion naira was going to be allocated to the House. For whatever they said, it's for furnishing, not necessarily as cash or given to the new members. What's your take on this? Is it justifiable? Can you justify that? And what should they be doing instead?
Length of time as a period of grace for a new government. I don't think we can say 3 months or 1 year. I think it's something that we have to keep evaluating as time goes on, especially paying close attention to each policy, because vigilance is going to be of utmost importance here. Each policy, scrutinize it. I'm happy that the report is all over the place today, that he has made a U-turn, President Tinubu has made a U-turn on the idea of giving conditional cash transfers of 8,000 naira to the most vulnerable, most affected families, the poorest. And they are reviewing it. So, and that's the kind of thing we want to see, that when a policy comes at a time like this, when we are fighting gargantuan problems and citizens speak out, a government is willing, is listening, and willing to review its steps. Now, so that suggests to me that whatever needs to be done, that the government will do it if it is convinced that it's the right thing to do. But is it 3 months? We don't even have ministers yet who will take charge of key departments and agencies of the government, key sectors of the government. So we cannot even begin at this point to say, oh, it's already had 2 months and that's already too long for us to see a noticeable difference in our lives. However, that said, it is the policies themselves at this point that matter most. The question is, should subsidy have been removed, whether you consider it to be real or unreal? And if you agree it should be removed, then the next question is, what do we do to ameliorate the problem? We will wait for them now to see the new policy that we bring out on ameliorating the conditions of the poorest of the poor. Then that apart, you ask about spending. So basically, cost of government is where the second part of your question is. There's no doubt about it. The cost of government is unsupportable. In fact, one of the problems we have in this country is you see somebody you've known all your life, and suddenly they get into government. And when they get into government, their life has been transformed beyond that of the most fabled riches in the world, princes. It's like, so it's just a bad thing to see that in the midst of this suffering, government can come out to budget for themselves those amounts of money. Now, it may well be that it's justifiable, but they have to show us. They have to show us. And I don't think, from where I am sitting, that it is justifiable. Take, for example, the replacing of all the vehicles, all the members of the National Assembly. The question to ask is, why do they need to be replaced? Does it mean that the outgoing, first of all, did everybody in the National Assembly lose their seat. So we're having all of them, new members who require cars. And if they all require cars, what happened to the ones that were there before? They have all become unusable. So these are areas where we must ask questions, because these are government properties. All the vehicles, I imagine they are government properties. They are not personal. If they are personal, of course, they go away with them. And if they are not personal, they leave them behind when they are leaving office. So what has happened to them? Why do all of them have to be replaced? Why do all of them have to be bulletproof, as I hear? Is it because of lack of security? And if it's a lack of security, whose fault? Who provides security? So it's unnecessary to have bulletproof cars for every member of the National Assembly.
I don't think it's all of them. I think it's just for the principal officers.
Oh, the principal officers? Okay, I'm glad it is so. So I'm glad. That's why I say I don't know if it's for all of them. Yes. But the key thing is, why do we have to replace all of them? That's the question. Okay. That's one area. And then again, I will recommend those things that have been suggested by Femi Falana. I think it was well thought out. In fact, he had the privilege of meeting with the president in person. So I imagine he has also conveyed these to him. Okay. So I hope that they will look at those areas of cutting the cost of government and improving our revenue collection.
Okay, so you say probably honeymoon period, but a lot of Nigerians are going to say no. Because this was the same government when PDP in 2012 pulled out subsidy and gave us a plan. This same government kicked against it, orchestrated protests on the streets, and everybody saw what happened. And they kept on paying. You asked a question about building a refinery. The same APC you are part of promised refineries. But where are the refineries? 8 years, President Muhammadu Buhari could not build one that is working. The tail end of his administration, they said they are revamping the ones owned by NNPC. So is this not a reflection of a litany of failed promises in the first place? And shouldn't the party take responsibility for all of this that is happening? And concerning how long for honeymoon period we can give them. But the president said he will hit the ground running. What happens to that? I think these are the questions. And I'm just amplifying the thoughts and sentiments of a lot of Nigerians out there. To you, what would you say about the fact that APC failed in 8 years to get one refinery working? Even the modular refineries that are working, they don't have crude because it's difficult to get crude from the NNPC. What would you say about all of these problems?
This is what I meant by saying earlier that these problems have been on for a long time. A long time. I don't want to dodge any question here. Yes, no refinery was got going in those 8 years. But I think what happened, I was not in government. I mean, part-time board member of a government agency. It's not necessarily in government. Meet 4 times a year, 6 times at most. But that I think at the point they changed their mind about getting any of the federally owned refineries, the 4 going, and felt because this whole privatization thing, the whole liberalization economy, the advisors, IMF, World Bank, the emphasis was, you're going to go there, you're going to be sinking money down the drain. Go face the private sector. And I think they decided to invest in Dangote's refinery, which they felt would do the job much better. So as for that, you could say, he may not have turned around any of the 4 nationally owned
finally
refineries.
Invested in NNPC refinery at the tail end of the administration.
Yeah, but in terms of time, because these are huge projects, to complete them, from conception to start to construct and finish them and get them going, it takes time, as we have even seen with the Dangote refinery. So I think that's where they decided to invest, to look to as a better option than relying on government-owned, facilities. Was it right? Was it wrong? I think time will tell. But it's not as if they did nothing. That's the point I want to make here. Buhari government did something about that. Now, as for the honeymoon period, again, he hit the ground running. I think a lot of people will even say he did so. A lot of people will say he did exactly that. There's a whole slew of things he has done already that compared to previous government, you would say he's far exceeded them.
But there's also hardship and pain.
Yes, and that is the thing.
People can't breathe.
Precisely. So if it's like the disease at this point is such that it's going to take a radical, solution. If it's cancer, you have to excise it.
Radical solution without planning?
Yeah, but so the plan is how much time to plan? First of all, there was an element
But a lot of people say he could have planned before he announced subsidy gone.
No, 1 second. There was a fait accompli about this, don't forget. There was no provision for subsidies in the budget.
No, but there was provision till the end of that June. And he announced subsidy gone May 29. We could have still waited till the termination date of that hitherto provision.
I think the best thing to do, when you know this is something, it's been on. You remember, you just reminded me now, when it was done by Jonathan, and then there were protests. This thing has been lingering. We need to take its stance. We need to do it decisively. We can't keep kicking the ball.
Let me go back to your civil society background. In 1989, you were Secretary General of the Students' Union of the University of Benin. I don't know whether you met me there when I was still teaching at Tekenwa campus, And you led the anti-SAP riots.
Protests.
Okay, you don't like the word there. The debate was held at the hall around You led the protest from the university campus to the GRA. The people of Benin joined you. Subsequently, you worked with the CLO as an activist. But today I see you wearing bespoke suits with a pocket scarf and all of that. I want you to speak to a certain irony, or if it like contradiction. The fact that civil society seems to be in slumber, asleep, snoring.
Yeah.
Earlier on this program, I asked the question, where were the activists of January 2012? They are still alive, or many of them are still alive. The people who said, this is the beginning of revolution. We will not allow removal of subsidy. Okay, well, I guess, that irony or contradiction speaks for itself. I don't imagine with this your gentrified look now that you will lead any protest. Or will you? Or do you
Your suit, I will say this suit, are far better than mine, okay? Far more bespoke. This is not this Chere wearing sport jacket.
Me too, my house is Chere wearing.
Anyway, seriously speaking, I don't know, is it time or what is it? Is it circumstances, Revolutions are not prompt, you know that, they are not prompt. You talk about being in the streets in 1989. That was at the beginning. There have been series of things going on. Little protests here and there that will culminate at that point. So they are not prompt. That said, don't forget I'm also a lawyer. As you are a lawyer. So as a lawyer, this is really like, power for us, in a suit and a jacket, and I'm even open-necked, So this is just, trying to play the part. Look the part of a lawyer. But that said, yes, I think what the society came to a point to realize that, yes, we've been protesting this subsidy thing for a long time, but maybe it has considered a big albatross on our neck that it probably should go, that ultimately those who benefit the most from it are not the masses. The masses become the excuse, the pretext for those who are creaming off billions upon billions, even going to trillions, to keep doing that. So if you remove that, the question would then be, what do you do with that money, so-called amount that be saved from the subsidy removal? And how quickly can it be planned to the economy to begin to transform the lives of the people? That's why I said, what we're going to do is to pay close attention to the policies that come from this government. But I think on the question of whether or not to remove subsidy, which is at the heart of the current suffering, is at the heart of the current suffering. So if we agree it should be removed, or you are even not too sure, either way, it means generally there's been a change in the thinking of the populace, of the masses. I personally know people who, like me, oppose subsidy removal. In Jonathan's time, I opposed it.
Oh, you were part of that?
Yes, I opposed it.
But
I was abroad then.
The fact stated that was the best time to have pulled out subsidy because the economic priorities were best. So you did it because of politics?
No, it's not because of politics. Because I published, like Ruben, I wrote, so my position is clear as to why I was opposing it, And it still boils down to this question of, we need to be refining petrol here. That's what this is the problem. Because we should be done with the whole idea of subsidies of petroleum. It is refine it here. That is the thing. And we don't have to talk about that anymore. So, yes, the civil society seems to be asleep, so to speak, but not entirely. I see about SERAP and other groups, and now and then statements from them. I think there was a change. In our time, don't forget, the emphasis was civil liberties. when I was the Civil Liberties Organization, in fact, we had to transform the idea of the civil liberties as originally formed. The students, activists who came from the campuses, the Chima Ubanis, Emaizi Azuz, myself, Innocent Chukuma, and I can really, you know many of us, at that time, who decided that we would go to the civil human rights organizations and make them more political. So that was the difference between us, for instance, and say that we believed in go to the streets, take to the masses, let the masses' voices be heard. Even some of us did not even vote on June 12th because we thought Babangida was just about to dribble all of us again. But when the people have spoken, we were the ones that insisted we should be in the streets. So it has changed. Now we have democracy. You can't speak in terms of Decree 2, detention without trial, ouster clauses, those things that agitated everybody. And therefore, it was possible to have a broad coalition, because that's coalition politics. That's coalition pressure, politics. It was possible to have a broad coalition of people, as we did under CD, Campaign for Democracy. Today, to find that consensus, to bring everybody together for a coalition kind of activism is more difficult. That's why even NSARS, as easy as that should have been to build that widespread coalition, it still didn't quite get there.
But that coalition was there in 2012 during the protest.
It was.
Everybody was there.
Even take it back. Even enough is enough. Yeah. I'm saying that they are always there. But you see, the thing about protest is that we can't. Yes, you are in the street. You have some demands, but there's only guaranteed that you're going to have everything that you want. Sometimes it ends at the level of registering the anger of the people in the streets, because you don't have the means to overcome the coercion of the state, the repression of the state that we follow, and you don't have the means to move en masse into politics and win the critical, seats as governors and in the National Assembly and maybe the presidency. That was the undoing of CD, as you know, when the progressives were primed to take over the government.
Well, thank you very much, Ogaga Ifowodo. Well, to address you properly, Dr. Ogaga Ifowodo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruben Abati.
Thank you for joining us.